thing is, you always have to look at the end gains.
Yes.
Look at the end gains from 9/11.
Yes.
Who does it suit? Who does it really suit? I don't think it particularly suits the people.
No.
I think they've lost an enormous amount of liberty and freedoms and rights through what happened then.
Do you look at all this stuff that is happening as either being positive or negative, or do you take a further step back from it all and look from it from another perspective and think that, okay, this is a natural cycle. We've gone through this before in some sense. We're going to make it through and might be able to come to a point where we need to go through it again, in that sense. Or do you feel like worry in for these upcoming times in that sense?
From a personal perspective, and I think that I've sort of studied it so long now. I've been studying it for about 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I've seen in the transits with people and countries, is that it's almost like we have to go through it. And if you look at the myth of Pluto, if you look at the myth of Pluto and Persephone, here's Persephone living an idyllic life with her mother Demeter, the earth goddess, and it was forever spring, and there was never any famine or winter or death. And then one day Pluto comes up out of the underworld,
kidnaps her.
Persephone,
yeah.
drags her down, rapes her, and takes away her innocence. I mean, she does become queen of the underworld.
Mm.
But the times, and it was negotiated that she spend some of the time up with her mother, because her mother could not get over the fact she had lost her daughter. And that's when we get winter, is when Persephone went down into the underworld with Pluto.
Yes.
And that's when, symbolically, that's when we got... But it's almost like that childlike state of bliss has to come to an end.
Yeah.
For us to grow. It's almost like we have to face the darker aspects, because there always has to be light and dark.
Yeah, otherwise there's no life. I mean, it would become too monotone, and again, no progress, if you will, or growth.
It means stagnation.
Exactly, yeah. And
so therefore, I feel that, yes, we do have to have these death-like experiences, both personally and collectively, so that we can come through them, hopefully become conscious of the meaning of it. I mean, if something, terrible happens in our life, I can't help but look at the bigger picture.
Yes.
And the meaning to it, and the purpose of it. And then we can reap. The Pluto actually literally translates as riches, which I find it very interesting.
So it's again to say it again. It's a time for opportunity as well as great danger, as it were.
Yes, and looking back through history, when we've had the Uranus-Pluto cycle, as I said, we had huge leaps forward in dealing with emancipation of slaves and also of women. The whole women's movement has taken a big leap forward at every Uranus-Pluto aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So, it could well be that women come more to the fore.
Yes.
Possibly.
Yes. And I'm also thinking. I think you wrote in your article that you have up on Diagnosis 2012, Jeff Stray's website there, a little bit about kind of, I guess, the green movement as well, and in regards to earth signs and how we potentially could see. And I think that we're in this time right now, then, considering how much go green, both propaganda and kind of advertisement that we have everywhere. But maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that. And do you think that also is in some way connected with this whole kind of oneness movement, the unification of things, and the probably know what I mean.
Yes. Well, interesting enough, when like with Sagittarius, that's the sign to do with ideas and potentials. So with Pluto going through Sagittarius, we had an awful lot of ideas about the planet and about how we were going to deal with things. But now it's moved into Capricorn. This is where we can make things real. We can actually manifest them. And all things to do with the earth, I think we're going to see come to the fore, especially things to do with food production. You know, the way food is kind of ridiculously sort of flown around the world.
Mm.
You know, it's like there's going to be a reassessment, I think, of all things earthy and green.
Yeah.
Because it is an earth sign, definitely.
So more, I mean, again, we have seen a rise in organically grown crops and things like that. I mean, some people, I remember, I think it was the end of Suburbia or something like that a couple of years ago, a documentary where they were talking about, at that point they were actually talking about the peak oil business and all that stuff, and they were elaborating on the idea that people would be wise to begin to grow stuff, and that things potentially in the future will look a whole lot different than we first imagined, that even people can have their little garden locally and things like that, and that's something that I haven't seen really kind of picking up yet, but I guess that something has to happen for that to take place, meaning that if we don't have access, I should say, to good food or organically grown food, then potentially a consequence of that is that people will have to begin to learn a little bit about this themselves, begin to grow something, maybe get a little plant house or a greenhouse if you have the space for it, things like that, right?
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more of that kind of thing. If you can imagine that we are going to go through a big period of hardship because of the kind of the Saturnian and the Capricornian flavour, if you like, that's really coming to the fore. I mean, interestingly enough, England is a Capricorn country, and it's almost like Capricorns, there's a side of them that kind of almost relishes that kind of challenge because it is a sign to do with austerity.
Mm-hmm.
It's like hard work, you get where you're going. It's the goat, the mountain goat, the symbol of Capricorn, laboriously going to the top of the mountain. It's like it really wants to get to the top to become, the true craftsman in whatever field that they're in, and for status. So we are entering a period of certainly harsh reality. And I think we've almost got to go through that. And yes, over the next 16 years, I think that we're going to see a big revision in the way we live in our society and what really matters, our whole value system.
And if we tie this together again and talk a little bit more about 2012, the economic situation, we've touched upon that a little bit. Do you think that we could see, because I know that at least again, if we talk about this on the official level, the politicians, the administrators of our society are talking about, reforming, if you will, the financial and monetary systems on the globe. They're calling for a new financial world order, things like that. Do you think that also is a reflection of their effort to try to both, of course, have their control system still in place in one sense, but could it also be that it's a reflection of that problems, if you will, needs to be taken care of more on a global level than just on a local or national level? Or what do you see that's a reflection of something in regards to astrology here?
Well, with Capricorn ruling the establishment and government, and Pluto ruling power, control, death, and transformation, I think all on that level, it's, if you can imagine, that Pluto will really, really bring that into sharp focus. So when we had it going through Sagittarius, it was all about excess. We were all living on the never, never. And now when it's moving into the having to do with power and control, in governments, then what could be better than to set up a one-world government? It would be completely in keeping with Pluto in Capricorn when you get that combination of energies.
Will it hold, though? Do you think it will it be able to stand up against the force of this this energy that screams of change and bringing down the old system?
Well, if we can compare it with what happened on the religious front, when with Pluto going through Sagittarius, I mean, on the one level, you could say, oh well, it'll be the death of religion. Well, it wasn't.
No,
it wasn't
exactly.
the death of religion, but the whole religious issue came into very sharp focus, and it was like we had everything was on a big scale with Sagittarius. It just has that quality to it. So therefore, it was like the clash between religions. But I think a lot of religions are going through the death throes or some kind of transformation. Well certainly, the Catholic faith is. Not all faiths are. Some are growing, but there has been a shift and a change, and certainly it's almost like the energy has to come out somehow and somewhere.
Yes. Huh.
Say, in somebody's personal chart, they could be having a difficult Mars transit that day, and you could say, well, they might have a very smooth day with one person and yet have an enormous row with another.
Right.
And it's almost like it has to come out somewhere. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. It's about letting off some steam in that sense. The pressure builds up and you need to release it in some way. Yeah.
Yes. So therefore, I think the urge will be towards one world government.
Yeah.
Whether this is achieved or not, I don't know. But certainly the focus will be on that, because we can already see it. We can already see the way this sort of a slight kind of manipulation going on, which really you have to question a lot of things. Like I could see, for instance, that we are eventually going to have to take on board being part of the euro. And then, so we get more and more countries, and then there's talk, isn't there, of like there just being like 3 currencies around the world, and then eventually that kind of merging into what, it's
the
like,
final, of course.
That's the way we're heading.
Yeah.
And so therefore, that is certainly going to be the focus.
Right. But
over the next 16 years, certainly.
Absolutely, and that's going to be the effort for what they're going to strive for. Do you think that that's a necessity for the power structure? Is that a kind of is what we're seeing now, what we're witnessing, is that the kind of death throes of the old system, of the old order, or even the the new/old world order in that sense? Because what I'm seeing is that this is all their efforts to try to prop up the system. They know that it's kind of crumbling apart because people will not, they don't want to go along with it. But at the same time, so what they're doing to counteract that is they're trying to bring in all these new elements that is going to trap us in a larger, more decentralized, more centralized structure in that sense.
Yes, I think it's completely in keeping with what's going on, but I think that it won't be smooth.
No.
And I think, as I've described earlier about the way Uranus absolutely cannot bear being tied down or controlled. It wants freedom and it wants truth.
Yeah.
And if it's not getting that, it will rebel. It will rebel. And so the danger of that happening is very high, very high. And I think because interestingly enough, this particular Uranus-Pluto cycle, the reason I think that things are going to be more extreme this time